Hey, Jamie, what's going on?
Hey, Scott, what's going on over there? Thank you very much for the intro. Welcome, everybody. Today is August 24th. Boy, it's almost in the books. Time is flying. So welcome, everybody, to another Office Hours edition. Usually I've got my trusty comrade, Steve Gomez, riding shotgun, but today he's on his little staycation. Took a couple days off, well-deserved, of course. So we might finish up a little bit earlier than normal today, as Steve usually goes over the market recap. But you know, it's pretty clear what happened today, and we'll briefly touch on the SPY and how it closed today, which was very strong. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get rolling with the old disclaimer here. Just want to make everybody aware of the fact that we share with you guys in these webinars throughout the week is for just someone that's legally allowed to dispense, buy and sell information or recommendations to you. I think that'll get it done right there. All right, and just always like to take a little bit of time at the top of the hour here to let you know what we have going on other than the award-winning technology, which is the community that we've built around the technology, and of course, Barry's Trading Room up here in the upper left-hand corner. A fantastic place to be and hang out if you're trading. It doesn't matter if you're brand new or a very seasoned trader or anything in between. Just a great environment. Tons of chat rooms and stock trading rooms out there on the web. And if you've done your homework, you've probably realized that none of them are free if they're any good. But it's not the case here. Doesn't cost you anything to get into our trading room. Matter of fact, you don't even have to have an active TI subscription to get in there and see what the community is about. So the next best thing is the price. Of course, the best thing is Barry Anderson, the moderator, who does an excellent job at moderating a room of 400 or 500 different traders, all the while showcasing his trading techniques and the way that he uses TI technology. And he doesn't mind answering questions too, so it's a great place. Of course, today's Monday, typically myself and Steve. Steve will be back in the saddle tomorrow for the Trader of the Week webinar. Wednesdays, always fun with Dan and Brad Williams, Dan being our CEO and founder of Trade Ideas, and Brad Williams is our Chief Technical Officer. Those guys typically giving you peeks of new features coming down the developmental pipeline. Andy Linloff is going to round out the 5 p.m. Eastern webinar slot on Thursday with Trading Studio. And of course, I ride shotgun with him on that day. And of course, our ever popular, ever growing daily support session every Monday through Friday, starting at 12 p.m. and going until 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a great place to come, get live help from myself or one of the other 4 trainer guys here at Trade Ideas, hosting that session every day from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern, answering your questions in real time. Doesn't matter if it's a simple configuration question, is it about back testing, the AI, Brokerage Plus, anything is fair game during that live support session. The next slide here is going to tell you how to get there. Just the address down there at the bottom left-hand corner, Trade Ideas or trade-ideas.com/live. It's hosted over YouTube. So once you have that locked in, bookmark that address. It's the same place each and every time, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time. All righty, moving right along here. Always like to show how our user base has been increasing. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the introduction of the AI back here in 2016. Slowly going up, and of course, with the advent of, well, all the things that are happening in 2020, a lot of people that have never been in the markets have been coming into the markets due to the fact, well, entertainment options are limited out there, ladies and gentlemen. No professional sports, no casinos, so everybody's trying their hand at the market. Doesn't necessarily mean trading is going to be any easier, though. Got some interesting things to point out along those lines here that we'll get to in just a moment. But our user base continues to increase, as well as the orders that are being pushed to interactive brokers through our Brokerage Plus module. Currently, Interactive Brokers is the only broker that you can connect Brokerage Plus to, but hopefully that's going to be changing in the not too distant future. We're currently in the coding process for Ameritrade, E-Trade, couple of other smaller firms, Alpaca, if anybody's heard of those guys. Bottom line is, though, those will be our forays into the $0 commission arena, because IB, even though they started out with some of the lowest commissions on the block per se, they haven't went full zero commission on orders pumped through their API, and that's how Brokerage Plus functions. We tap into their API. Will they come around? Don't know. We're not going to wait, though. We're going to get some $0 broker-dealer connects, and then we'll let the market and the users sort that out. But as you can see here from the slide, orange orders are demo orders, and live orders are in blue, and they just keep increasing each and every month, which lets us know people are digging Brokerage Plus. Myself, all the guys up here use it, and we've traded on just about every platform out there, and we're all of the mindset that it's so great, so easy, one-click trading, auto trading. It just allows you to do whatever you need to get done with minimal effort. So if you have not been using Brokerage Plus, whether it be in our demo paper mode or live through Interactive Brokers, I'd highly recommend getting familiar with it. Okie dokie, and on to today's itinerary, we could call it. What the overall markets do today? Well, no big surprise. We pull up the SPY here. All-time highs, you know. We closed, what did we close at on Friday? Closed just pecking at it right about the 339.48 level. The high previously to that, so just, you know, a little ebb and flow right there. And then of course, what do we get today? We get the old, not whether sometimes it's just a gap, and that's what they did. Now, interesting enough is this nice little green hammer close. That's a very strong close for today. Looking strong, okay? Looking like we might go sideways for a while. Who knows? We might gap up again tomorrow. You just never know when market conditions get like this. Might pull back to this level right here and build a little base. Might go higher tomorrow. We just don't know until the next session presents itself. You know, we are pretty extended from the 10 period up here as well. So we'll just have to see what happens tomorrow. So that's pretty much it for the, you know, the market wrap up, I guess we could call it. Steve usually goes through the Qs, IWM, but we all know what those things did today. The Qs have been hitting highs for quite some time now. It's taken a little bit of time for the NASDAQ or the SPY to catch up, but now we're past that barrier. So we're back into blue sky in general, so to speak. All right, so when we get up to these levels right here, doesn't mean by any stretch that trading is going to be easier. If we kind of check out the SPY here, we're looking at 5-minute candles. Let me just take a little bit of time here to tighten it up. Let's look at the 15-minute, all right? So we did have the nice little gap up here, but check out what we did for most of the day. Took a little bit of a leg down here, which kind of coincides with what we would see if we were looking at my compare count window, which, by the way, this is a window that I like to consult after the first 15 minutes to kind of give me an idea of what direction we might be headed. You can see here, after the first 15 minutes, looking at all stocks above a $4 billion market cap, hitting highs and lows with a little bit of accelerated 1-minute volume. We got a 55% bearish reading today. 55% being right on the threshold. You know, typically if it's 55 or below, I tell myself, well, anything's possible. I like to typically see it above 56% to, you know, to get a little bit more confirmation. So we were right on the threshold today. And of course, what did the market do after that first 15-minute candle? Here we have the first 15-minute candle right here. And sure enough, after that first 15 minutes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for about the next hour and 15 minutes, we bobbled around, and on that last 15-minute period, we did take a run down here, only to be caught by, you guessed it, there's the fast line right there, comes down here, fast line acts as a trampoline, kicks it back up, and you see what we did for the rest of the day. We just kind of ebbed and flowed right around that that fast line, that 10 period, until the very end of the day. Got this close above it, and then boom, 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 legged it right up, showing strength into the close, which is definitely good if you're a bull. Having said that, I saw maybe did a lot. We'll save that for later. Let's first go ahead and get the Holly recap done. Holly, not the most active, not the least active, kicking out a total of 13 signals here. If we take a peek over here at the, oops, let me just get my pointer back here. If we take a peek over here at the trade count, we had 7 from Holly 1.0, we had 3 from 2.0, and we had 3 from Neo today. So not a huge trade count, kind of average, I'd say, 13 signals. And what I typically like to do is showcase the stocks that it was possible to take out a little bit of the spread between moderate and conservative amount. They set up for opportunity to add to that position. I also typically like to talk about trade arounds, which are stocks that have been stopped out of the AI, where the stop area acts as a nice pivot area for a chance to make a re-entry into that position that the AI got stopped out of. But there really were no good examples today. So not a whole lot of trade arounds to speak of today, but some good spread between moderate opportunities in ORTX and ODT. So let's first take a look at where the spread was present if we were paying attention today. ODT right here. Let me just make sure I got them all up here. SONN was another one, and BJRI as well. So let's just take a peek at ODT first. And you'll notice what I've done here is I've sorted the AI blotter by moderate profit here. When we do that, then we look for, well, of course, this is all looking back in retrospect now, but ODT, conservative profit here. And this is the column that we're looking at right here, conservative profit versus moderate profit here. What did Holly book in her profit save mode right here? That was the reason, the conservative exit reason, profit save, which is basically the AI pulling the plug when the position isn't going in the direction that it's supposed to, okay? Or you could look at it as a more of a modified trailing stop. But in any case, this is kind of typical with this little flat area right here. We're at, what do we have, 23.20 here. And what happened for, let's see here, about 30 minutes after the signal was generated, we just kind of went sideways here. Profitable by a smidge, you know, the difference between the blue line and this candle right here. The shaded area right here is the time spent in the trade in the conservative mode. So Holly gets bored with this and pulls the plug and books a profit of 45.75. Now, before we move on here, just want to point out these values that you're seeing in all of my columns, whether it be conservative or moderate profit, are all based on me telling the system to risk $100 per trade. We can always set that up by going to Tools in the TI toolbar, hitting Options, coming over Field. You can see here I'm saying risk based on stop loss. Only risk 100 per trade, then the system gets me in the appropriate amount of shares so that if we do get stopped out, I only lose right about 100 bucks there. Now, these numbers right here are going to differ from what you see over here in the channel bar. Have these values reflect what we, okay, so basically all stop area there. So let's just take a little bit more risk than the AI. What we used to call risks, we would have been rewarded when we get over here to about 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 my time. We get the AI signal from Holly with that statistical weight here. Now we do have to be patient in this one. So what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 2 hours later, this thing forms a nice consolidation. And then what do we have right here? A nice, clean, very pretty range break, what I like to call an auxiliary pattern playing out on top of the AI signal that we got way back here. This would have been a great opportunity to add to the position, as indicated by the orange arrow right here, as this opening range break here has been pushed through. All right. So also too, when we're talking about risk on the addition here, typically my rule of thumb is using the prior 15-minute candle, which in this case would have been this little guy right here. Probably might have been a little too tight. If I, you know, was trying to just kind of eyeball this, probably just would have used the original AI signal, which would have been the top of that candle. But the bottom line is risk was very small on this addition here. So we got the statistical probability from Holly. Then we had a secondary pattern play out, could have shorted right here. and doubled up on that position and got the majority of the move following that opening range break there. Now also to pay attention to the green line, the fast line. This guy this guy was in control the whole time on the down move, and who knows, unless we see any obvious areas, which my eyes immediately go to this little area back here, this wick on the daily, way back from March 18th. This may act as a little, and it's looking like that might act as an area of support potentially. However, I'm going to keep my eyes on ODT moving forward, see if it acts weak, see if it acts strong tomorrow, and then act accordingly as well. But I definitely keep my eye on ODT today because a pretty good little run here after that opening range break there, and an excellent opportunity to add to the position there. And by the way, ladies and gents, I will do my best to keep an eye on the chat panel, but since I'm just one guy over here today, I might get behind here. But okay, Dave, yes, I will share that compare count window. You know what, as fate would have it, before I started the webinar, I was making some space on my other screen, so I killed it. But I can pull it back up right before we conclude here, and I'd be happy to drop that into the chat panel because I've got some other windows that I'm going to share as well. Okay, so other than that, I think we're good on questions, and I see Scott answered the Brokerage Plus question. All right, so moving right along here. So, well, let's not forget, what was the multiple in here between conservative and moderate profit here? Oh, only about 6 times here. Round that up to 50 bucks, 6 times 50 is 300. So that was some pretty massive spread in there that we could have gleaned from conservative to moderate profit there. Okay, next on the list, BJRI. Not quite C720 on that timed exit. Well, you can see down here the bullish pullback strategy was the one that generated that one. And we can see right here, 45-minute hold time. So roughly 1, 2, 3, 15-minute candles after, it's 45 minutes. The AI simply does what it's programmed to do, exits the trade right there on that timed exit for 67.20 on a $100 risk there. And if we stayed in the trade, let's see there, that's, we'll call it 2 and change on the X factor there, not near as juicy as the ODT, but hey, over a double there, 2.5 or whatever. And all we really had to do here is just simply stay in the trade with our original stop loss down here, right here using the entry line a little too tight. Of course, it would have wicked you out there. If we would have made a lot of progress, maybe think about using a break-even stop. I'm more a proponent of sticking to the original hard stops because that's the bet that we make. If we're wrong, this is what's going to make the pain stop. That's kind of where we're joking around there. That's kind of where the word stop comes from. It makes the pain stop. If we're wrong, that's all we're going to lose here. So just sticking with our original stop, giving the trade a little bit more time to play out would have produced some nice profit here or spread between conservative and moderate profit as well, just by sticking in the trade. All right, just seeing some questions come through here. Let me take a quick glance. Well, and of course, my questions panel isn't showing me the entire question, so let me just expand that out a little bit. And the question is, if you've never used the AI, does it tell you in advance what the exit strategy is, or do we need to follow along with it? That's a very good question, and all of those factors are right there for you to see. I'm just going to expand the AI strategies panel up here. These are all the strategies that made the cut today. So if any strategies or if any trades, well, let me rephrase that. Of all the trades that were produced today, this was the group of strategies that produced those trades. Of course, just because a strategy makes the cut doesn't mean it's going to produce any trades. We can see down here at the very bottom, tailwind and pullback short had 0 trades. Good handful had 1, and then the top 3 here, buyer stepping in, little big guy and bullish pullback, all had 2 trades respectively. But you can see right here, the timed stop. It's always going to show you what our time stop is, either a time of the day or a certain amount of minutes. And it's also going to tell us what the stop loss being used is in the stop loss column here. Now, also, when we click on the AI trades, as you can see here, let's see, ODT, ORTX. As you can see here, we were just looking at BJRI. I skipped over ORTX there. We'll come back to it. Check out the numbers over here on the right side of the screen, entry signal and your stop loss. So all of the trade parameters from the AI are sketched out and loaded up on the charts for you. You can also see them in the descriptions and the time stops and everything down here. So yes, everything is there from the entry signal. This is your stop loss. This is the timed hold. And then we also have the option to ignore the AI's exit signals if we think that the chart is looking good and we want to stay in the trade as well. So hopefully that answers those questions as well. And we're going to continue along here, and I'll circle back around. We had a couple more questions come in, but don't want to lose my train of thought here. I want to go ahead and talk about ORTX because this one presented some with an add-on. A couple of different ones here. Let's see, I think I changed my time frame up here. Yeah, okay. Sometimes I just like to have a little bit more candles to take a look at here. ORTX was a very, well, let's just say I love seeing signals like this from the AI. ORTX coming out about an hour and 15 minutes into the open with the buy signal right here at $4.86. Now, we were looking at ODT earlier. We got the signal way back here, and then the opening range breakout came a good bit later on in the day. Whereas ORTX, it's coinciding, okay? Notice the strategy, little big guy. And that's just a reference to the price of the stock, $4, $5, $6, little big guy. A lot of the times we'll get a breakout strategy signaling a chart like you're seeing right here. But in this case, notice that the opening range break is also, it called it just a little after the opening range break. The opening range break would have been 482. The AI came in at 486. Nothing wrong with that at all. So this happens to be an auxiliary pattern playing out at the exact same time that we got the statistically weighted signal from Holly today. Little big guy coming in at a statistical weight of 60.5% right here. So let's get off it right there. So we had 60% chance of success based on the statistical analysis that was done. And then look, we got a nice clean range break playing out at the exact same time. So when I see this, you know, if we call the statistical probability gold star number 1, we've got this nice auxiliary pattern playing out at the same time. I'd call that gold star number 2. Well, is there a third gold star? Let's see. Well, I'd have to say yes, indeed. When I look at the relative volume that was high all day on this thing, all right, it finished the day at 6.51, and this relative volume metric was torqued pretty much all day, all right? And these lower time frame volume metrics like the 5-minute, they were just banging all day. So when we see statistical probability, auxiliary pattern at the same time that the signal is generated, and we also see this massive volume here, that's something that you want to pay attention to here. And therefore, right here is the first signal. Then what do we have after that? We had about 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes of sideways or consolidation action again, making for another nice clean break, all right? First setup right here. We go sideways, we break out again. This would have been a great time to add to the position right here where the orange arrow is. Then what did ORTX do? It marched up again, took a little pullback, set up nicely again, and then we had a nice clean break here again. So we had the AI signal with an auxiliary pattern with massive volume. 3-star trade to begin with, not one, but 2 nice setups to continue to add to that position. And it doesn't matter if you're a new trader, old trader, somewhere in the middle, you've probably heard time and time again, cut your losers when you're supposed to, and add to your winners when it's appropriate, okay? Adding to a winner, not always easy, you know, to do. You know, a lot of psychology comes into play. You're like, I'm already up, I don't want to mess it up, you know, whatever. But when you see things like this, clearly there was a very orderly buyer in this thing, okay? If every stock behaved like this, boy, we'd all be a lot richer. Unfortunately, they don't. few and far between. But when you see them playing out like this, should start to ring a bell in the future. Okay, we got a higher high, we got the nice consolidation, we're gonna make another higher high, so forth and so on, all the way through the end of the day. The last opportunity coming, let's see, what time was that? Right about 2 hours before the close. All right, so ORTX, definitely a worker. No big surprise when we look here. Hey, therapeutics, one of the biotech stocks. No big shocker there. I don't expect therapeutic stocks, biotech stocks, anything in the biotech arena to soften up anytime soon. Of course, you know, there might be some excellent downside at some point on all these big biotech rippers, but for right now, the direction is definitely up. So a beautiful trade on many fronts on the ORTX today. Now, one thing to point out here, usually I'm looking at 15-minute intraday, but also the 10 period was in control on the 5-minute chart all day as well. So whether you're watching a 5-minute, a 10-minute, 15-minute, I think the 10 period fast line could always do you some good on the intraday level. All right, so ODT, BJRI, mine's a little loose today. Did we look at SONN yet? No, we did not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we looked at SONN yet. Now, numbers not near as big as what we're seeing up here, but a big difference between taking a small loss in the SONN here versus making 80 bucks, all right? If that was a positive 20, we'd be at a 4x factor right here, but since it's negative, we're about at a 5x factor. So that's something to pay attention to here. Now, once again, this was a reduced risk bailout here. SON, nice little gap up, comes down, pops back up, that comes down here, and that's when Holly flags it. Buyers stepping in, okay? Nice little down move. Now the buyers might be stepping in, and that's exactly what happened here, but it took a little bit of time to get the engine going here. But this is very common to see reduced risk once we have an entry and the stock proceeds in this fashion, very similar to what we saw in ODT, except that one was a short. So SONN, I should say, we get the buy signal right here at 352. Stop loss way down here at 305, never even acted like it was going to get below the 336 level here. So not a lot of fear that we were going to get stopped out there, just kind of ebbing and flowing right around the entry line before we finally get some traction, and boom. Once we got back above that fast line there on the 5-minute, it was just off to the races. SONN at one point of the day, definitely the biggest percentage gainer because, you know, this thing capitulated up here. Let's see, it's not, all my data went away for some reason, but we topped out on this one at 494. So from the original entry signal of 352, might be a little off my math there, but it's about a 40% gain at the top here, okay? So some big profit potential in SONN before it finally pulled back and got a little soft at the close there. But definitely a huge percentage winner and a big multiple there between conservative profit and moderate profit there. All right, let me just back up on questions here. Give me one sec. All right, so the question is, if it comes to performance using Holly, what's the recommendation for a setup home PC? Yes, when you're interacting with Holly, I'm not going to say it's impossible to do on a portable device, on a tablet or whatever, in which you'd be using our web version. But there's a lot of information to go through here. Obviously, you can see all the columns, and you know, we got the strategy panel, we've got the AI trades blotter, of course, along with any other windows and charts that you want. So, yeah, when you're going to be sitting here interacting with the AI on a daily basis, yeah, that's definitely the favorable way to do it. Is, you know, sitting and focusing on as much screen space as you can muster. So yeah, that would always be the first go-to, is a nice big setup. If you have to go a portable device, then you can watch the AI through our web version. Next question was, can you connect to IB and then tell to follow automatically the strategy? Yes, that is a possibility. It is a possibility to take Brokerage Plus, which you can see right here, and go to the Holly AI panel here, and you can see this was me in our paper mode today, but all I did before the market opened is number one, come up here and tell it to connect, then I get the green bar. Then I come over here and I highlight all the strategies, right click and just say enable those strategies. And then once you do that, you're off to the races. I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to point out, we get a lot of people saying, hey, can I just leave Holly going and then come home from work and see what happened? Of course, you can do that. That is a possible way to use the AI. But before you would ever do that, you would want to get very familiar with the mechanics of the AI, and you would want to run the AI in our paper mode, and it's going to be different for each and every person. Could be 2 weeks is your comfort zone. For other people, it might be 2 months. Could be longer or shorter, just depending on the person, okay, and how much time they spend observing. But what I'd like to point out here, number one, once we do go into the Holly AI tab here, you'll notice if I right click in here, we can set up our long trading instructions and we can set up our short trading instructions so that it will know how to put our orders out. And of course we can put out market orders, limit orders, everything in the book there. But check it out right here. I have this set to the exact same risk parameters. In other words, risking $100 per trade. And if I pop back in here and say, edit my long trading instructions, oops, I stand corrected here. Obviously, I was only risking $30 per trade on, oh, that's re-entry. I'm sorry. Okay, need to go to edit long. Okay, there we go. I was like, it looks a little wrong to me. You can see right here, I'm risking $100 for my long trades. I'm also risking $100 on my short trades. Now, the thing that you saw before was for re-entries. In other words, if the trade gets stopped out on the AI and it makes it halfway back between the stop loss and the original signal, that's called a re-entry. And you can tell the AI to make re-entries for you as well. But that's what we would call a little bit more advanced once you were comfortable just with basic AI trading. So the bottom line is this: operating in moderate mode. Well, I forgot to point that out. Let me show you one more time here. I've picked my risk mode as moderate, risking 100 per trade, using limit orders with a delta of 7 cents, meaning it's going to take the entry price or what the AI marked as its price. It's going to add 7 cents. It's going to put my limit order out there. So we call an aggressive delta. It's not quite as aggressive as a market order, but a lot of the times I get my fills. Sometimes I miss my fills. The only way to get every fill on a long trade is to run a market order. But when you do that, you're going to take a lot more slippage, right? And the reason I didn't include short trades in there on a market order is because sometimes we run into what we call hard to borrow stocks. And if there's no stocks for shorting, well, your order will get rejected even if you did run a market order. So you see, these are some of the things that can come into play when you're launching live AI strategies. Is you might not get the fill if the stock was moving fast and you were using a limit order. And then if it wasn't borrowable, one of the big winners of the day might have been a short trade, but at IB, if it wasn't borrowable at the time, you wouldn't have been able to execute. So these are some of the things that come into auto trading that you can't necessarily see on a back test. All right, so getting back to the point here, notice down here with $100 of risk, I'm showing the AI made $673.70. Well, if I've got the exact same settings in here and I'm on moderate risk, I'm showing $532. When I didn't close any of these positions manually, I let the AI do everything. So why is my total here about $140 less than what we see here? And the answer is slippage, okay? The difference in price that I got filled versus the difference in price that the AI got filled. So on these 13 trades today, that is the amount of slippage that occurred, about 140 bucks worth. So if we divided 140 by 13, what would we come up? Close to about 10 cents of slippage per trade, which sounds about right because sometimes slippage is going to be 2 cents, other times it's going to be 12 cents, or it could be more or less on any given trade. But that's why we highly recommend, if if you're anxious to get started auto trading with Holly, that's a great goal, okay? But make sure you're prepared and you have realistic expectations. So in other words, don't sign up for IB, plug it in without operating in demo mode, because a lot of the times you'll make mistakes on order entry, put a wrong value here, put an extra zero where it shouldn't be, okay? And that can be very eye-opening. So the good news is our Brokerage Plus will mark the price at the exact price, and a lot of the times within 1 or 2 seconds that stock might be a nickel, a dime higher. So you're going to get realistic slippage simulation as well, and that's very important when you're considering automating the AI. Okay. All right, let me just do a little time check here. All right, time's passing quicker than I thought here. All right, so let me get my cheat sheet here. Got through the moderate and conservative spread trades and the add-ons that Holly presented today. No good trade arounds. I did want to point out what happened today as far as the opening range breaks that I like to follow using my modified turbo up and turbo down windows, which are these guys right here. Just some real simple high-low tickers with momentum. Now, of course, being at all-time highs today on the SPY, I was thinking this little guy right here was just going to light it up, and it has been lighting it up for weeks now, okay? Spitting out these stocks that just happen to be exhibiting a range break. And of course, why do I use a new high? Well, that stock, if it's going to be breaking that range, it has to pop a new high. And on the opposite side of the coin, if it's a opening range breakdown, it's got to be popping a low. So these configurations right here, which I will also share before we're done here, are looking at a very simple filter complement. All we're doing is we're saying, hey, as long as the relative volume is 4 or higher and the stock has already traded 100,000 shares, well then show it to me, please, and then I'll check out the pattern and see if it's conducive. A lot of these guys today, though, were not doing it, okay? NAC, I just pulled this one up at random. This is a good example of one that did not show up because the volume wasn't really kicking right here. And then when they did show up today, a lot of them were pulling back and not continuing, all right? Number one, there just weren't a whole lot of setups. Maybe in this whole ticker there was 1 or 2, not even really worth going over. But where I was a little bit surprised today is all the choice opening range breakouts were to the downside, and this guy was producing them, okay? So let's take a look at some of the ones that were being produced today. Let's see, first here, LMNL, okay? Once again, we're looking at 5-minute candles right here. A nice big gap up in LMNL. Once again, look at the title up here, Liminal Biosciences. And ladies and gentlemen, there have been so many biotech stocks going on massive runs. I mean, look at the daily of this guy, you know, lately. I mean, look at these huge moves, all right? Now, what goes up a lot of the times comes back down, not always the case. But having said that, what I'm starting to notice is a lot more of these are starting to come down, especially today. So, you know, for the first half of the day, this thing was pretty range bound, but slowly and surely, if I were to draw some trend lines here, we wedge down into this little area right here, and then bingo, right here, we get the signal here. Hey, LMNL at a new low, right about the $16.16 level. Well, yeah, so what if it came down from here? Look how tight we got right here. So keeping to my typical rule of thumb, If I'm going to take a stab at one of these, my risk is going to be the prior candle high. All right, let me try to stretch this out a little bit just so everybody doesn't have to squint so much. So here's the entry candle. I mean, just a ridiculously tight stop, even going back 30 minutes. So I went ahead and bumped it up to back here. But the bottom line is, still didn't make it. All right, still didn't make it. Came close right here, and then it presents itself again right here, and the break finally occurs, and you get a nice move all the way from the 16-18 level all the way down here to 12-30 and change. Okay, that's a significant percentage move here, and that's why I like showing next high or low in this window here, because it tells us right off the bat, without us having to eyeball the chart too much, if this thing does go, how much room could it have in it? Okay, and it's basically making these calculations, off of the potential support and resistance off the daily. But when this signal came through right here, you can see the value right here, and I'll just circle it just so everybody knows what I'm looking at. When the signal came through right here, next high low, it had $3.65 of potential in it, okay? And this one performed quite well today. So having this next high or low column in here is a great way just to see the big number so that we don't have to go back and take additional time to examine the daily to figure out, well, looks good right here, but how much room does it have in it? Don't really want to short it if it's going to bump into support in 5 or 10 cents, okay? So I hope that makes sense. And by the way, when I do drop these windows into the chat area, keep in mind that next high or low is a custom filter. So anybody that would like that added to their account when we're done here, you'll just pop an email to the info@trade-ideas.com, tell them you want the custom formula that Jamie talked about in the webinar. They'll send it over to me, and I'll be happy to just pop it right into your account via the back office. All right, moving right along here. The next one, Elway. Got to squish it up a little bit here. Okay. Here we have the opening candle here. We had the high put in up here. Low comes down and puts in here, and then we go range bound. Come down here, get nice and snuggly. What do we got there? About 5, 10, 15, over 30 minutes of consolidation right at the low before we get the break right here. This being a smaller dollar stock, and then what are my eyes looking at? Okay, 10% potential is 57 cents. So as soon as I see, hey, this guy's breaking down, 65% potential, over 10% on this little stock. All right. Well, number one, is the risk in place? And of course, we can see if we just pull this line down here and go, yeah, all right, if this is the entry candle right here, and I'm gonna use the highs of these candles right here, that's what I like to call very small risk. Never even popped back up through the line. Just this little guy just fell right off a cliff. Of course, they don't. This is an exceptional event right here. Do they all fall down like this? Nope, but this one did. Okay, so plenty of time to get into the trade in this candle right here. I mean, the low of that thing, and of course my metrics have disappeared up here. Let me see if I can get them back. Don't know why that happens, but even the low of that candle right there was 569, and over 4,000 shares traded in that 5-minute candle. So it might look a little spotty, but there was a lot of volume going on in these candles today. Let's take a peek at what Lifeway finished at on the day, because that is the beauty of these windows. They're only spitting things out that have high relative volume. So it's going to produce some stocks from time to time that normally, if these things were doing normal volume, you'd be like, yeah, it's too thin, too gappy, too spotty. But when the volume's in there, all of a sudden a stock that's not so good as far as liquidity goes becomes a lot more liquid, okay? And I doubt very seriously anybody's slinging, 1,000, 2,000 share blocks these days anyway. Maybe you are. If you are, that's fantastic. But most of us are, doing a little bit smaller share size, or going $5,000 per trade, so forth and so on, which on a little stock like this, on a 1,000 share position, could have gleaned you a nice little pile there. All right, so let me get my pointer back here. Now this next one was one that was just all over the place last week because it had such big up moves, okay? So that's something that you should be keeping in mind. As you see these other stocks take big rips over a 1-2 week period, and then one day, not too long in distant future, you see them coming through the downside ticker. You're like, hey, they had big runs up. They could have some big runs to the downside as well. Kirk being no exception here. Actually, two different times, depending on how early you like to get started in the market. 5, 10, 15, 20, not quite 30 minutes into the open here, about 23 minutes in. You know, there was a nice opportunity up here at 1191. If you like a little bit better of a picture, well, then right down here at the 955 level presented a very nice opportunity as well. And notice what happens as this level right here has been hit. First, we get the first up here, and we're thinking, okay, it's got 30 cents of room in it. It's not the best, but hey, might not be too shabby. Maybe you take a little bit there. Maybe you throw out a little tester of 100 shares just so you pay attention to it, get a little skin in the game. That's always a good thing, so that you'll pay attention to it. So, maybe you just said, okay, I'm going to watch this one, see if it gets down to the next level, in which case this one did, and painted a little bit prettier of a picture here. Once it got through that 30 cents right there, then look what we had right here as it was breaking down out of this level for an original entry or maybe an add-on from your 100 up here. Let's say you got a little 100 tester, little skin in the game just so you wouldn't forget about it. And you see it setting up here and you're like, hey, now it's got a $1.37 if this thing does release. And on a $10 stock now, that's a pretty good percentage potential there, okay? Risk on this one would have been right here, high of the prior 5-minute candle. High of the prior 5-minute candle up here would have kept you in it. This one would have kept you in it as well, and then you would have gotten the lion's share of the move here, all while getting a little heads up from the new next higher low going, hey, $1.37 and a $10 stock. That's good information to have on the fly. So actually, Kirk, depending on how aggressive you are, how soon you like to get started, presenting two really nice opportunities to the downside today. And we got one more here, NBR. Okay, so this one a little bit different, and I don't mind these as long as they set up nicely right around the entry level here. Clearly, looking like a lot of the other stocks today, nice big gap up, and boom, they just sold it hard for about the first hour today. And then it takes its little bounce here, but notice where it does bounce to right here, okay? Bounces right up to the fast line, the 10 period. Then it comes back up here, or excuse me, comes back down here and breaks this little tranche that it set up right here. Kind of ebbs and flows right around the entry line, but eventually you get the entry signal at 596, bottom out at 530 and change. We'll just call that 60 cents, still over 10% potential in this short today. So that was what I was alluding to earlier in the day. As far as these types of plays go, there was a lot more potential in the downside than the upside today. Now, is it just an anomaly or is it the shape of things to come? Don't know. If I see this activity for the remainder of the week, well, maybe it is the small caps that ran up coming back down to earth. But when we look at the IWM, it's still looking pretty darn strong today, wicking off the that 20 period and coming back up here. I guess it's really going to be contingent upon whether or not it can reclaim the fast line, the 10 period over here on the daily. But so far, that's what it's telling me is a lot of these lower dollar stocks that have been in the stratosphere are now starting to give a little back. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues tomorrow. All right, so we are bumping up against the top of the hour here. So I guess I'd better get these windows popped into the chat for you. So first we're going to take this one, make sure it's on real time. Make sure this guy's on real time. Going to go ahead and drop these in. So here is the long version. And here is the one that produced all the good ones today, which is the short version. All right, so both of those windows are in there. And as I also promised, got to reload my layout here so that I can grab the compare count window for the individuals that would like to have that window as well. And once again, this compare count window that I'm about to drop in here is looking at all stocks with a market cap of 4 billion or higher with a little added 1 minute volume. So if you want to do it like me, you'll take a peek and see what the readings are after the first 15 minutes. And if it's above 56% one way or the other, might want to pay some attention to it. And of course, keep in mind, just like any study or metric that's one of your favorites, I found that this thing is pretty accurate a lot of the times. Does it predict a move all the time? Nope, nothing ever does. But the more you watch it, the more I think you'll notice the correlations that are within it. And so I think we got about 4 minutes left. Let me see if there are any questions that I can get to. Okay, so Thomas, hopefully you were asking where the cloud links were, and I just dropped those into the chat panel. On another note here, a lot of mine, Andy, Steve, and Sean's favorite windows are over here in the Traders Vault. So if you click on the Traders Vault, you'll see all of our favorite windows in there as well. And you can peruse these and browse them and try them out as you see fit. And then, of course, if you see one that you want to capture, all you have to do is right click in there and say save or share to cloud, save that window to your layout, and then you'll have it, make it part of your default layout. Okay, and to Paul's question, new to the system, would like to learn as much as you can. Of course, the 5 p.m. Eastern webinars are great. Also, spend as much time as you can in Barry's trading room, and then take advantage of the live support session every day from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. If you attend the 5 p.m. Eastern webinars, the support session, and hang out in the trading room, you're going to get over the learning curve a lot quicker than if you weren't attending all of those three things. And yes, we do have chat working during the market hours. We have got live chat on the website. Starts 30 minutes before the open and continues until 30 minutes after the close. And I'm not sure, Thomas, if you were asking, directing your question about can you ask for only long trades? If you're talking about the AI, sure, you can only pay attention to the long trades, or if you're auto trading, you can only activate the long trades. You can activate only the strategies that you want to when you're talking about the AI strategies. And lastly here, the question is, do you know when TDA Ameritrade will have its connection to Brokerage Plus? You know, I'd love to tell you, I just don't have an ETA yet. Word in the development circles here is that E-Trade might be finished before Ameritrade. But of course, you never know how things go in the developmental world. But as far as I've heard, E-Trade's going to be first, then Ameritrade. But of course, in the software business, there is never a guarantee. All right, so ladies and gents, we're at the top of the hour here, so it's time to bring Scott in and let him walk us on out, let you guys know how you can save a little bit of money on either an upgrade or a new subscription. I want to thank everybody for popping in and happy trading tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. A couple items on the way out. We do have a podcast, and you should check out the episodes we've released so far this year. Just search for Trade Ideas Podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Add us as a subscription. Be ready to pick up the next one when it comes out. There's a code, summertime saves you 15% off your first month or year of trade ideas or upgrade from standard to premium. So write that down and use it. And if you have any questions at all, send them to info@trade-ideas.com. It goes into our help desk software so it doesn't get lost. It gets routed to the best employee to answer your questions. And you can find Jamie on Twitter at QuantBot. Also follow at Trade Ideas and at The Day Trader and our other handles. Thanks, everyone. The recording will be up later on tonight or tomorrow. Thank you, Jamie.
Hey, thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody, for popping in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.